Good morning, good morning. So we're going to do strategy and tactics on this book. It's page 744, chapter 7. So strategy and tactics. With a heavy heart, Marius was about to get down from the post of observation he had devised when a sound attracted his attention and made him stay where he was. Okay, so Marius is actually spying on the Thénardiers. Remember, they're called the Jondrettes right now. But the Thénardiers, because remember, he found out that they were shystering people. So he is watching them shyster people. The door of the garret was hastily opened. The elder daughter appeared on the threshold. On her feet she had rough men's shoes covered with mud, which had spattered as high as her red ankles, and she was wrapped in a ragged old cloak that Marius had not seen an hour before, but that she had probably left at his door to inspire more pity, and must have put on as she went out. She came in, closed the door behind her, stopped to catch her breath, for she was panting, then cried with an expression of joy and triumph, "He's coming." The father turned his eyes, the woman turned her head. The younger sister did not move. "Who?" asked the father. "The gentleman." "The philanthropist?" "Yes." "Of the Church of St. Jacques?" "Yes." "The old man?" "Yes." "He's going to come." "He's right behind me." "Are you sure? Positive?" "He's really coming here, in a fiacre." "In a fiacre? It's a Rothschild." The father stood up. "How can you be sure? If he's coming in a fiacre, how did you get here before him? You gave him the address, at least. You told him the last door at the end of the hall on the right. Provided he doesn't make a mistake, you found him at the church then. Did he read my letter? What did he say?" Slow down, said the girl. "How do you run on, my good man? I'll tell you. I went into the church. He was at his usual place. I curtsied to him, and I gave him the letter. He read it, and said to me, 'Where do you live, my child?' I said, 'Monsieur, will show you.' He said to me, 'No, give me your address. My daughter has some purchases to make. I'm going to take a carriage, and I will get to your house as soon as you do.' I gave him the address. When I told him the house number, he seemed surprised and hesitated for a moment. Then he said, 'It doesn't matter. I'll come.' When mass was over, I saw him leave the church with his daughter. I saw them get into a fiacre, and I plainly told him the last door at the end of the hall on the right." "And how do you know he'll come?" "I just saw the fiacre coming into the Rue du Petit Banquier. That's what made me run." "How do you know it is the same fiacre?" "Because I noticed the number." "What is the number?" 440. "Good. You're a clever girl." The girl looked resolutely at her father, and pointing to the shoes she had on, she said, "A clever girl that may be. But I tell you I'll never put on these shoes again. I won't do it. For health first, and then for decency's sake. I don't know anything more provoking than souls that squeak and go kee, kee, kee all along the street. I'd rather go barefoot." "You're right," answered the father, in a mild tone that contrasted with the young girl's rudeness. "But they wouldn't let you into the churches. The poor must have shoes. People don't go to God's house barefoot," he added bitterly, then returned to the subject that occupied his thoughts. "And you're sure, then?" "Sure he's coming." "He's right on my heels," she said. The man sprang up. There was a sort of illumination on his face. "Wife," he cried, "you hear? It's the philanthropist. Put out the fire." The stupefied woman did not stir. With the agility of an acrobat, the father grabbed a broken pot that stood on the mantel, and threw some water on the embers. Then turning to his elder daughter, "Take the rush off the chair." His daughter did not understand him at all. He grabbed the chair, and with a kick ruined the seat. His leg went right through it. As he was pulling out his leg, he asked his daughter, "Is it cold outside?" "Very cold. It's snowing." The father turned toward the younger girl, who was on the pallet near the window, and thundered at her, "Quick! Off the bed! Good for nothing! Will you never do anything? Break a pane of glass." The little girl sprang off the bed, trembling. "Break a pane of glass," he said again. The child was speechless. "Do you hear me?" repeated the father. "Told you to break a pane." With a sort of terrified obedience, the child stood up on tiptoe and punched a pane with her fist. The glass broke and fell with a crash. "Good," said the father. His eye ran hastily over all the nooks and crannies of the garret. He was serious and brusque, like a general making his final preparations as the battle was about to begin. The mother, who had not yet said a word, got up and asked in a slow, muffled tone, her words seeming to come out as if curdled, "Dear, what do you want me to do?" "Get into bed," the man answered. His tone admitted of no deliberation. The mother obeyed and dropped heavily onto one of the pallets. Meanwhile a sob was heard in a corner. "What's that?" cried the father. The younger daughter, coming out of the cranny she had retreated into, showed her bleeding fist. In breaking the glass she had cut herself. She went to her mother's bed and was silently weeping. It was the mother's turn to sit up and yell. "What stupid things you're doing, breaking that glass!" She cut herself. "So much the better," said the man. "I knew she would." "What do you mean, so much the better?" the woman asked. "Silence," replied the father. "I'm suppressing the freedom of the press." Then tearing the blouse he had on, he made a bandage with which he hastily wrapped up the little girl's bleeding hand. That done, his eye fell on the torn blouse with satisfaction. "And the blouse, too," he said. "Everything looks just right." An icy wind whistled in at the window. The mist from outside entered and spread out like the whitish cotton picked apart by invisible fingers. Through the broken pane the falling snow could be seen. The cold weather promised the day before by the Candlemas sun had come indeed. The father cast a glance around him as if to assure himself that he had forgotten nothing. He took an old shovel and spread ashes over the moistened embers to hide them completely. Then rising and standing with his back to the chimney, "Now," he said, "we can receive the philanthropist." So if you're pulling quotes on appearance versus what like the public face versus the private face, this would be a good chapter to focus on, because he in appearance appears to be worse off than he is. Okay, we're going to continue on with the sunbeam in the hole. The older daughter went to her father and touched his hand. "Feel how cold I am," she said. "Pshaw!" answered the father. "I'm a good deal colder than that." The mother cried impetuously, "You always have everything better than the rest, even pain." "Enough," said the man. The mother, after a particularly significant look from the man, held her peace. There was a moment of silence in the den. The eldest daughter was idly scraping the mud off the bottom of her dress. The youngest sister continued to sob. The mother had taken her hand in both hands and was covering her with kisses, saying to her softly, "My treasure, please. It isn't serious. Don't cry. You'll make your father angry." "No," cried the father. "On the contrary. Sob, sob. That's just right." Then turning to the elder, "Ah, but he isn't here yet. What if he doesn't come? I'll have to put out my fire, knocked the bottom out of my chair, torn this blouse, and broken my window all for nothing." "And cut the little girl," murmured the mother. "Do you know," resumed the father, "that it's as cold as a dog in this miserable garret? If the man does not come, oh, that is it. He is making us wait for him. He is saying, well, they'll just wait for me. That's what they're there for. Oh, how I hate them, and how I'd strangle them with joy and rejoicing enthusiasm and satisfaction. Those rich men, all the rich, they're supposedly charitable men who go to mass, have a taste for the priesthood, preachy preachy, who give in to the cows and think themselves better than us, who come to humiliate us and bring us clothes, or so they call them. Rags not worth 4 sous and bread. That's not what I want of the rabble. I want money, but money never, because they say that we'd go and drink it away, that we're drunks and do-nothings. And what have they been in their day? Thieves. They wouldn't have gotten rich without that. Oh, somebody ought to take society by the 4 corners of the sheet and toss it all in the air. Everything would be broken, most likely, but at least nobody would have anything. There'd be that much gained. But what's he up to now, your mug of a benevolent gentleman? Is he coming? The brute may have forgotten the address. I'll bet that old fool—" Just then there was a light tap at the door. The man rushed forward and opened it, exclaiming with deep bows and fawning smiles, "Come in, monsieur! Do come in, noble benefactor, as well as your charming young lady." A man of mature age and a young girl appeared at the door of the garret. Marius had not left his place. What he felt at the moment escapes human language. It was she. Whoever has loved knows all the radiant meaning contained in the 3 letters of this word she. It certainly was she. Marius could hardly discern her through the luminous vapor that suddenly spread over his eyes. It was that sweet absent being, the star that had been his light for 6 months. It was the eye, the brow, the mouth, the beautiful vanished face that had brought him night by going away. The vision had been an eclipse. It was reappearing. She appeared again in this gloom, in this garret, in this misshapen den, in this horror. Marius shuddered desperately. How could it be? It was she. The wild beating of his heart clouded his vision. He felt ready to resolve into tears. How could it be? At last he was seeing her again, after having sought her for so long. It seemed to him he had lost his soul and just found it again. She was still the same, only a little paler. Her delicate face was framed by a violet velvet hat. Her figure was hidden under a black satin cape. Below her long dress he caught a glimpse of her little foot squeezed into a silk boot. Okay, so it's Cosette, and he is, so obviously it's her dad that they are shystering. We're going to start next paragraph with Jondrette almost weeps at the next one.